Perfect. So we're just gonna start. All right. So hello everyone. Just before we start, I would like to first of all start by saying thank you so much for joining today. My name is Stella, and I'm a Corbally personal and business credit coach. Okay, it seems like the YouTube live is re-echoing, so maybe I'm just gonna see how to mute that. Okay. I was able to sorry, so we're actually going live on YouTube as well with the Zoom. I just learned that you could do that. So I did a live on YouTube and my voice was re-echoing, so I just had to mute that, but that's fine. Okay, so I was trying to introduce myself. My name is Stella. I'm a core belief personal and business credit coach. So what do? I provide DIY services on how you can actually build your credit report and maintain a good credit report. So today we are going to be having a Q&A session, which is more ideal for new to credit as well as new immigrants, people that haven't had any credit report or credit rating at all. So it's just going to be a Q&A session. I did have multiple questions that came in, which I'm going to be asking our co-host. And if you do have any questions as well, please put it in the chat and we'll try as much as possible to answer those questions. All right, so I'm just going to put the focus now. I will be introducing the co-host, and I'm going to start with Bolu Okunu. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit more about you.
Hi everyone. My name is Bolu Okono, but I go by Bolu. I am a CPA, FCA, and I have MSc in Finance and Investment. I've had the opportunity to work in banks, accounting firm, and lottery industry. Today I'm happy because I would be answering some questions about credit for newcomers and new immigrants.
All right, and also we do have another co-host, Winston. Can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you very much, Stella, for inviting me on the show as well. Good morning, everyone. My name is Winston D'Souza. I'm a realtor in Moncton, New Brunswick. I'm also a designated CPA as well, and my accountant, my past background. But right now, I'm just focusing only on real estate investing as well as for homes for first-time home buyers, and that's my core focus. So, and credit is one of the very important part of it. So, I'm glad I'm part of this discussion. Thank you.
Okay. All right, just got a notification that it's not going live on YouTube. Okay, I'm not tech savvy, so whichever way, it's fine. The meeting is being recorded, so that way I can have the video as well. All right, so let me just pull up some of the questions that I do have, and we'll kind of like taking it in turns. So, and wherever anyone can jump in as well, that would be awesome. So let me start with you, Bolu. The first question here is, what exactly is a credit report, credit score, and why is it important for newcomers to understand the need for credit?
Um, from my understanding, I know a credit score is an estimate of your credit behavior. It's based on information from your credit reports. It actually shows how well you can manage your credit. How well are you able to repay the loans you obtain from banks or your or sources of finances, and how risky it can be, or it would be for you to lend money from banks as well. Also, it's important for newcomers to understand this because most people come into Canada, for instance, without the knowledge of credit, how it works, how it's been applicable to your life. Um, this session is just going to be giving you a lot of information on how you can manage the credit, things you need to know, how you can build your credit. It is highly recommended that you understand the way credit works in Canada as newcomers.
Okay. And when you talk about understanding how credit works in Canada, so for someone like me, because I'm someone who is, I have let me use the word credit fright. I don't like anything credit. So for someone who is new and has that kind of mindset, like I don't want to take a loan, I just prefer to pay cash for everything, or I don't want to take anything credit. So really, what would be your advice to someone like that?
Actually, I was like that when I first migrated to Canada. I didn't want to take credit because I didn't have an understanding of how the credit operates. So for a new person, anyone approaching me for the first time, I'll advise them to go get a credit. Start by getting a credit card. If you're able to maintain your credit card, not spending above your means, that would be a very good starting point for you. So I would also want you to know that by getting a credit, by you having a good credit, um, you're entitled to so many benefits, like a good job offer. You can be approved for mortgage, which also impact the kind of interest you're paying. You can be approved for car loans. There are lots of things in Canada that rely a lot on your credit. If you walk into a store today, a car store today, and you're asking to get a car, the first thing they will look at is your credit score. It's not just that. There's some jobs that also require credit score. So basically, in Canada, it's something that is really important. It's very good for you to have good credit score, and be able to maintain your credit as well.
Okay. All right. So it's good to know that like one important point that you mentioned there is for your job employment as well. Some employers would actually require that you have a good credit score. So that's good to know on the reason why it's important. Okay. So now I'm going to take the second question to Winston. How does having a good credit score benefit immigrants and new to credit in Canada? So I think Bolu kind of like touched a little bit on it. So maybe if you want to expatiate more, and yeah, if you have more points to add to it.
Yeah, pretty much what Bolu mentioned. I would definitely, the highlight on those as well. But one thing to keep, if you can take away something from this webinar today, uh, understand everything in Canada, especially North America, works on credit. So you need to have a good credit score for a lot of things, as Bolu already enlisted, like job, mortgage, car loan, credit card, maybe to buy furniture from a furniture store. You need that. So having that and maintaining it is very critical. It may seem initially it's very a big task, but honestly, once you understand how to go about with it, and you get the necessary guidance and all, it will not suddenly become almost like an effortless work. So don't get bogged down with okay, I need to do this to get all these things. So, but you need to understand you need a good enough credit score if you have to do a lot of purchases here in North America / Canada.
Okay, that's good to know. And so, Winston, I'll throw this one to you. What steps can immigrants take to start building their credit history from the scratch? And this would also apply to someone who is new to credit as well. So, what steps can they take to start building?
The first and foremost, even I also was a newcomer 7 years ago to date. It's one of my best experience had. As soon as you land, and moment you get your social insurance number, go to a bank, and you have to anyways open a bank account. You have to open it. When you open it, ask for a credit card. Even if the credit limit is of a low amount, $500, that's okay. Open it. Get that credit. Get the credit open and start managing it. So at least that in that way, at least you're establishing some credit. You will not you'll be surprised how time evolves and goes away. Suddenly you have crossed 9 to 10 months, and I say 9 to 10 months because in my case, I had to show, despite I having credit history in United States, I had to show 9 to 10 months of credit here in Canada. Then I was approved for a mortgage. Again, I'm keep going to mortgage because I'm a realtor, but I'm sure there are many such touch points. Even to rent an apartment, landlords do need to see that. So that's why as soon as you land, get a SIN number, open a bank account with a credit card. That would be my first advice, right, for us, anyone who's a newcomer.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And also, apart from credit cards, like your cell phone bill as well, I normally do also recommend ensure that it's one of those network of phone providers that do report to the credit bureau. So that way you're also building your credit report. Now, for someone who is brand new, let's say like someone who's of the age of majority, how would you advise them on how they can actually start building their credit report, especially for like the students? So we know that there are a lot of offers out there for students, for credit cards, whatever it is, and it just makes it easy for them to get things. So what would be your advice to someone who is starting brand new? And let the target audience will be under the age of majority.
And a majority. One thing you have to understand how this credit score is determined. There are five factors. One is the length of your history. Now, one is number two is the number of are you making your payments on time? Number three, how many credit applications you're making regularly? Number four, are there any bad issues? And so on. All these 5 points together, they make up your score. So someone who's brand new, who's just coming for college, or for any and even a newcomer on work permit or something, establishing a credit card and using it responsibly very important. So my advice would be, and Bolu already touched on it, if you're using a credit card in your month, try not to use more than 30% of the limit. So if your limit is example $1,000, make sure you at the end of the month, whenever your billings, one thing what I would also advise, look at the billing statement of your credit card. It could be fifth of the month. By the fifth of the month you have to make your payment. So make sure, number one, the balance is not more than 30%. Number two, you're making a monthly payment. Even it maybe has whatever is the minimum monthly payment, make sure you're doing the minimum monthly payment. But I don't recommend to sticking to minimum. I recommend doing higher amount, higher than the minimum. So at least by doing this, by building a track record, you're helping your credit score evolve a period of time. Eventually, you are like I said as an example, you initially were offered $500. That same bank tomorrow may come and offer you a higher amount. Once they see that you're being responsible, you are being very diligent with your credit, they will offer a higher amount. So don't focus on the limit initially. Focus on doing the basics, paying on time, less than 30% balance. Don't apply for multiple credit cards just because my friend told me apply for that one. Please don't do that. Be very deliberate. Apply for one and stick to the one for the initial 1 year. After the first year, then you can apply another one. That would be my advice for someone who's new, especially a student.
Okay. And you touched on something. You mentioned something about depends on how you use the credit card. You might be eligible for like to bumping up the limit there. Now, I know we kind of like have two sides. There are people that are comfortable going for those higher limits, and some people are not comfortable. So, what would be your recommendation when lenders are showing those offers to, especially for one who is probably just starting out within 1 to 3 years? Are you going to recommend that they should take those offers or wait, or what would really be a recommendation?
First and foremost, read what the offer. You have to read what the offers are. So I will really respond to one particular offer. If it's a credit limit increase, I highly recommend taking it only because it affects your credit score. The reason why it affects you, like I just told you, you need to maintain a balance of a particular level. So now suddenly, if you have the higher limit, that just shows the bank's confidence on you. So I would take it. But because you got this limit, doesn't mean you turn around and keep swiping the card without discipline. You have to be very deliberate in how you use it. Like in my case, I even had set up a system where my bank account was linked to my credit card. So at the end of the month, whatever the usage, it would automatically, more or less, most of the money would have gone there. So my first advice: read the offer, see what the offer says, and then go with it. But if it's a credit limit increase, I highly recommend taking the credit limit increase.
Okay.
I just want to add
Yesterday,
to that. Sorry, Stella, I just want to add to what Winston has said. That's true, but for students, for newcomers, I would, like you said, like Winston said, go for it, but be very mindful. because as you build a history of low balances and as in on-time payments, that also helps you. It's just about you being determined, being judgmental, knowing your credit history with the credit card you have, with the limits you initially have. If you are able to manage your low balances, able to pay on time, then you can go for the big amounts. Take it, but read whatever offers you're giving. Do your research. Also, the credit cards do come with offers, like air miles and all that. You might want to benefit from those additional packages as well. So do your research on those credit card and take the one that is more beneficial for you.
Okay, thank you so much. There was a statement I heard yesterday that says your credit card is not an extension of your account, your bank account. So it's just also creating that awareness that even though the banks are offering you those credit cards or those higher limits, you still are responsible to making those payments, and it's not an extension of your bank account. So just the fact that you have a 5,000 limit doesn't mean that I have 5,000 cash in my bank account. You still have to pay it back. All right, awesome. So Bolu, this would be the fourth question will be for you. Are there any specific challenges or barriers that immigrants might face when trying to establish credits?
Yes. Common as in there are some common credit problems that immigrants might face because just coming into Canada or North America, lack of enough credit history, so you might find it difficult obtaining a credit. And that's because and that's why you need to start building up. And that's when you come and you go to the bank, they, apart from opening a bank account, they offer you the credit card immediately, which is a starting point. But lack of enough credit history could actually impact your credit limits. Denied credit application. If you applied for credit in the past and you've been denied, that could also limit you. It could be a challenge as well. Another thing I can think of would be fraud and identity theft, which occurs when someone uses your name, your social insurance. So you just have to be very careful of giving out your information. You might receive calls asking for your social insurance number. Please do not give it out. They always say that. You don't want anybody using your identity. That could also affect you because you wouldn't know someone already used your identity to obtain a credit. And then you go to the bank or you go to a financial institution to obtain a credit and you're denied. So those are the challenges I think you might face.
Okay. And I was talking to someone a couple of days ago, and the person was new immigrant to Canada. And when they were trying to get that mortgage, because they didn't have a credit history, one of the challenges they had was I think they had to do about either 30 or 40% down payment, almost like 50% down payment. So those are other like factors that will impact one with no credit history or credit score at all. So it's always good to, just like you rightly said, start from the scratch, start from somewhere. And you kind of brought something else there, Bodu. You talked about identity theft. Now, I know you might not be an expert in that area. What would be your advice to one who just attained the age of majority? Because there's a lot of those click this link videos that you see. Well, my neighbor was telling me yesterday as well that she got an email that Lady Gaga was giving a couple of thousands of dollars, and for her to click on the email. And in my mind, I'm like, I told her outright, I said, you don't know Lady Gaga. She doesn't know you. So to me, that is outrightly like a phishing email. But what would be advice to, especially the ones that just attain the age of majority or probably under the age of majority, like what would be advice to them on those scam phishing emails, identity theft, so that way they're kind of like aware and they don't fall victim of it?
Okay, so what I can just say there is you just have to be very careful, irrespective of who you are, I mean, you just have to be very careful. There are so many juicy offers on the internet, and everyone loves offers. Everyone's looking for discounts and they want to take advantage of them. But they look so real, and you just have to sit down and think about it a second time to ask yourself, is this real? Can this be possible? My advice is be very careful. Be very careful. Do not click on those links except or you've heard if you're not sure, reach out to a friend and tell your friend, oh, I came across this link or I got this offer. Do you think it's real? Um, YouTube is also is a good one. Social media, in fact, is good. You can go on YouTube, you can Google it, that is this a scam or something? You would see responses on that. So just take your time. Do not click on any link. Do not accept any offer until you have confirmed and you have researched on it.
Okay, and I'm just going to share a personal experience on that one there. I remember a couple of years ago, somebody sent me a link about, I think Adidas was doing a giveaway on shoes or Nike. I cannot remember which store, but the person sent me the link, and I'm like, okay, I know you because it came from someone that I trusted. So I said, okay, I know you. I'm just going to click on it. And then I clicked on the link, and as soon as I clicked on it, what made me know that this wasn't real was I just saw we have access to your IP address. I'm like, how can you access my IP address by just clicking on this link? So immediately I backed out of it. I didn't go ahead filling out any information, but just clicking on the link alone, a week after, and I'm not someone that goes into my online banking all the time. A week after, I just signed into my online banking and I noticed that there were transactions done on my credit card. And immediately I had to contact my financial institution, and they said we're going to do an investigation. And actually, they told me right there some of the transactions were done from the US, some was done from BC, and I'm in Moncton, New Brunswick. So they kind of like reversed it. But honestly, it took me a lot of work because I had to change all my email addresses, password. I had to change all my banking information, login ID. And I'm like, this is just minimal. What about if they had access to my social insurance number and all that? It's going to be a lot of work trying to even manage those things. So to your point, it's really, really advisable not to click on any link, just play it safe, and to avoid being victim of identity theft or fraudulent transactions. Okay, so we're just going to move to the next question, number 5, and this will be for you, Winston, because you already mentioned a little bit there. What are the differences between credit scoring systems in different countries? So I know that you're from India. I hope
Yes.
I got that right. Yeah, you're from India. You lived a little bit in the UAE, and then you moved over to the US before coming over to Canada. So definitely you would have had different credit experience with this country. So what are the differences between the credit scoring systems in the different countries that you've lived in, and how can immigrants navigate these differences?
That's a very good question. And yes, from the countries you mentioned, from the three of them, definitely do have a credit rating and a credit score. But I'll just emphasize more on Canada's part, because whoever's on this call, I presume they are coming to Canada, so I would just focus more. So there are 5 components of it, and even on my realtor Instagram, I did make a video on this because it's a very before you apply for a mortgage, that's the first thing you need to have. You need to have a credit score. No credit score, it's as good as you may have to buy the house on cash. Not many people have that much cash lying around. So, anyways, for the part that focus on, number one, you have to focus on the length of your credit card. So, for example, your credit history. For example, you land on February 24th. You go to the bank, they give you a credit card on February 24th, 2024. That's when your length of your history starts. The longer it goes, the better it is. So, having said that, if you get like tomorrow, assuming you get 3 to 4 credit cards, I highly recommend don't start closing credit cards, because then you lose that history that you earned over a period of time. So that's one of my things, the length of history. Even if you don't use it, no problem. Just every now and then, just use it very minimal, keep it active, and that's about it. So number one, length of history. Number two is the payments. You will notice on a credit card statement, all the credit bureaus they say this is your monthly minimum. Do the monthly minimum at least do that at the least. But don't stick to that, because if you do the monthly minimum, it may take you 57 years to pay off $5,000 balance. Now we don't want to spend a lifetime spending paying off the balance for it. I mean, I'm sure our lifetime goes way beyond 57, but that's just an example. So do the minimum monthly, because to be in status with the credit card company, because they're going to report it to you to the credit bureau. There are three credit bureaus. Equifax, uh, yeah, geez, I can't even remember the other two. I apologize for, but there are three credit reporting agencies over there. These banks and all, they report to them. So I just mentioned about the monthly making payment on time. Number three, you when you mention the number of credits you apply for. So what my recommendation is over here, if you'd apply for a credit card, choose one credit card. Your friend will tell you, you know what, this bank is giving you with cashback, so go for it. This friend is saying, okay, this credit card will give you with air miles. So you choose which one you want to get for. Get only one. Don't apply for multiple, because the more credit cards credit you apply for, that means you're hungry for credit, and the banks take a little negative view on it. They're a little concerned. If this person needs credit, that means they're financially not disciplined. That is their concern. That's how they look at it. The third point. Number four, oh boy, there are two more points and I can't recollect, but these are the five core points determine your score over a period of time. So that's why I just focusing mainly on Canada. Uh, it's similar in US as well. It's almost the same thing, but these are the three things you refer: the length of your credit history, you're making of payments on time, your credit inquiries, or the fourth one is the balance. You don't want, if you have $1,000 limit, you don't want to have a balance of $950. That's not good. Try to, like I said, make it 30% below your credit limit. So if $1,000 is limit, make sure your balance is below $300 per month. That shows you're very responsible for the with the credit card. You technically don't need the credit, but you're using it at the same time. So the bank or the financial sees value in giving it to you. So these are the 4 points, like I remember top of my head that you need to do. There's the fifth one, but I'm sure it's a small point. So if since I'm not able to remember, I'll maybe pass it on to Stella, or maybe Stella or Bolu may maybe mention it out. But this is where in Canada how it is done. uh, so again, these are all basics. Focus on the basics and you'll be okay over a period of time.
All right. I think maybe the fourth one would be don't have a late payment, because late payments have a huge impact. When it hits the 30 days, it definitely reports to the credit bureau and it has a huge impact. I'm not going to go that too much into that because I think there's a question on that piece, which I'll let you both answer as well. But you did talk about the credit inquiries. Now, yes, the credit inquiries has a huge impact. So what would be your advice to someone who goes to the store, any store, and is being offered any form of credit? As you know, there are different offers right now. You hear the one of, oh, for people below 50, you can get this, you can get that, just any form. And also, when you want to purchase vehicles as well, because that's one of the major ones. The auto dealers usually will submit your information to multiple lenders. So what would be your advice on how to navigate those?
Are you okay if I go first on this question?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Uh, Stella, this is a very question, because this is something you will face it when it comes to cars. Yes, you're correct. A dealer will go to different lenders. They'll go to all the banks possible. So on your credit history, you're going to see Bank A, Bank B, Bank C, Bank D. All these people doing inquiries on you. Okay, that's okay, because the reason why you're not hunting for credit. The credit bureau, the dealer is looking for all these credit bureaus. So whoever is reading your report, they will see on maybe February 24, 2024, there were four inquiries by different banks, but by the dealer. So in that way, it was not going to be a big issue. Now I will also jump to mortgage, because I'm a little more familiar over there. Same thing, when you go for mortgage, you're going to talk to different lenders. You're going to see who's giving you good terms, who's giving you who's giving you like less penalty, prepayment penalty terms. You're going to see all those things. You're going to go to different lenders. But if it's like in a small range, like within 1 to 2 weeks or maybe within a month, people understand, because this is a big ticket purchase. You're buying a house, buying a car. Those are big items, massive items. So you're going to have multiple inquiries on your credit, and that's okay. But what's not okay, you applied for credit card with this bank, Then you turn around, you go to Canadian Tire, apply another credit card. You go to Walmart, apply another credit card, and so on, so. That's not okay, and that makes you look like you're in desperate need of credit. So what I mentioned about the auto and mortgage, they are big items. So that's why those are my points over there.
Okay, yeah. So to your point, it's good not to be seen as a credit seeker. Yeah. And you on the inquiries as well. Yes, even sometimes, even though you're able to explain to your financial institution on what happened, but all those inquiries, they are hard credit check, majority of them. So they drop your score. So I normally tell people use a simulator. It will give you an idea of this is what your score is, this is what your score will be when you do an application. And this is just more like a general advice. If you want to purchase like a vehicle, for example, and you're going through a dealership, I normally do advise as well. Ask the dealer, are you fine? Do you have a specific institution that handles your financing for your clients?
Hmm.
Or are you just going to be throwing my information out there to different lenders? So that way you can, because sometimes you're not aware. They just put your information out there, and different people are doing hard inquiry checks on your credit report. And some of them actually have just one institution that they work with. So, to what something that you and Bodo also did mention, it's good to read the fine print. Always ask those questions, the why behind the why, and make sure you're comfortable with it before you go ahead. All right, then. This would be to Bolu. How can I access my credit report and monitor my credit score regularly?
There are different ways. I know we have the online banking. Your bank is your friend. You can go on your online banking and you can get your credit score, your credit reports there. It's free. It has no impact. There are other places online that can be used. We have TransUnion, we have Equifax, we have Credit Karma. There's so many online resources that you can use. You can go online and just do credit report search or something. They will come up. And don't be afraid. It's not that it's going to reduce your credit score. It's free and you can get to see your credit report. It's always good to do that at least on a minimum once a year. Just see what is in your, excuse me, in your credit report. And because there are some transactions that you might not be aware of, but from your credit reports, you get to see them. And once you see them, you can call out immediately.
That is so true. That is so true to avoid those situations where there are items on your credit report and it's not something that you applied for and it's showing there, or maybe you had requested to close a credit card or close a loan and they're still showing as being active products. So once a while, once in a year, is that your recommendation?
At least on the minimum.
Okay, to check it. That's awesome.
Yes.
All right. And this would be for you as well, Bolu. Are there any resources or programs available to help immigrants or new to credit learn about credit and financial literacy in Canada?
Just before I answered, I think Wilson had something to say. He had his hand raised.
Yes, I just wanted to bring a point on what you were just mentioning on it. Uh, by checking your credit report, like if your bank offers you, it is not a hard check. And because it's not a hard check, it doesn't have an impact on your credit score. So I agree with what Bolu mentioned. People look at it, but your banks typically offer you free access to your at least one of the credit reporting agencies, so you can see your credit score without. And again, it's not a hard check; it's a soft check, so it'll not hurt you. Thank you, Bolu, for giving me a chance.
You're welcome, Wilson. Okay, so Stella, to answer your question on the financial literacy and information resources or programs, there's so many websites with information. Basically, I came across one recently and I was surprised. And that's on Canada.ca website where it talks about credit reports and the score basics. Basically, it breaks it down what the credit report is, what your credit score is, how it is being calculated. So that's a very good one. Looking at Canada.ca website, you would get lots of information. If you're not sure, if you're not okay with that, I know if you go on the internet as well by browsing, you will see lots of them with lots of information. So it's that things you can read in your spare time to just understand how it goes. If you're not too sure of what you're looking about, then you can reach out to your financial advisor.
Okay, nice. Okay, and then we're just going to go over to the other question. What are some common misconceptions about credit score? So I know I highlighted that I was going to answer that question, but if you do want to go for it, that's fine, and then I could just throw in some points as well. Winston, did you want to talk about that, please?
Sure. If you don't, do you mind repeating the question? I was a little distracted.
No problem. So what are some common misconceptions about credit score?
Yes. Some of the misconception on credit score that are there, and it mostly stems from minimal resources, minimal information. That's why if folks don't have it, that's how I look at it. Some of the one that I just shared earlier where was by checking your credit score. That's a hard check. No, it's not a hard check, especially something like your bank offers you. You just take a look at it as and when you're reviewing it. It's not a hard. So that's one misconception I would like to I mentioned earlier. So that's not one. Number two, if I close my credit cards, my score will increase. Potentially there could be because of the balances part, it could be. But keep in mind, by closing a credit card, you're losing the length of history. So that's another thing. That's why I mentioned earlier. If you open a credit card, make sure you're going to stick with it for quite a long time, because you're building history on it. You don't want to lose the payment on time that you made, the low balances you maintained on it. You don't want to lose that good history. So that's where those are the two that comes to my mind at the time.
Okay. Did you want to say something, Bolu?
I was going to talk about the ad check, but Winston already mentioned it because that's the one I know about. People are scared to actually check their credit reports because of that. They're scared that once they check or they ask about it, their score will go down, but it's not. So it's just for people to be aware of that.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, another misconception is co-signing. So some people feel that, oh, because I co-signed for this, I co-signed with my brother or I co-signed with my friend, I'm not responsible towards the payment. And I try to tell them that as long as your name is showing on that credit product, you are as well responsible towards the payment. So if the person decides and say, hey, I don't want to pay this anymore, and then late payments start reporting, it's also going to impact you as well. So that's one major misconception. And another one is some people would say, my income is high, it should get me to qualify for what I need. Okay, that's not how it works. There are different factors that the lenders take into consideration. And honestly, if you have things like bankruptcy, consumer proposal, collection items on your credit report, even if your income is very high, even if you have huge amounts of savings, that tells them about your credibility, like who you are. So if you're not able to manage a simple credit card, how well do you want to manage what you're applying for? So those are some of the misconceptions that people do have, and it's good that we're talking about it. So we're kind of like creating more awareness there, especially on the co-signing pace, because I tell people before you co-sign for anything, ask a lot of questions and also ask yourself questions. If you want to apply for a mortgage or you want to qualify for something in the near future, and you're going to co-sign for somebody to buy a 2024 Tesla of 100,000, that's a huge debt going on your income to debt ratio. So that's something that you really need to ask and reach out to your financial advisor. They'll be the ones to provide the best advice as well. All right, so let's take another one here. Okay, the other question is how can immigrants avoid scams or predatory lending practices while trying to establish credit? I think we already touched on that one, so I'm just going to skip that part. So this would be for Bolu. What are some long-term strategies, or both of you can answer actually, what are some long-term strategies for immigrants or new to credit to maintain a healthy credit score and financial stability?
Um, I just want to start with for those using the credit card, the credit card is more or less a loan. So they should have that in their mind when they are approved. So when you get a loan, you need to repay your loan. So don't miss out those payments. And also, when you're looking at strategies, do not use your credit card to finance unaffordable lifestyle. Because you've been because you've been approved for a 5,000 limit, doesn't mean you go about spending it anyhow. Look at it, think about the consequences. Think about, why do you require this credit card? What do you need for? What are you trying to achieve with a credit card? Right, build your credit score. So getting a credit card to finance unaffordable lifestyle is a no-go area. Avoid using your credit cards if you are not ready, if you're already in financial trouble. Like we've been talking about, getting credit card from multiple banks is a no-go area as well, because you already have debt in those banks. So avoid using credit card if you already have financial trouble. You're not able to pay back your credit card. You're not even able to pay the minimum payment. Just avoid it. Or you're not sure about yourself. You're not disciplined enough on how you spend on the credit card. Avoid it. Make your credit card payment on time. We'll keep saying that. No matter how low it is, like Winston already said, look at the payment date. Make sure if you don't have enough money, make sure you pay the minimum amount your credit card is required. Like Wilson also said, I would advise you pay more. Don't stick to the minimum. Don't limit yourself to the minimum. The more you pay, the more opportunities you have to get to increase your credit card limits and other products. Don't get hooked on minimum payment. Pay your credit card bills in full every month if you can. Borrow only when you need it. Another thing I like to say is, do not ignore your service agreements. We don't really like to read, but it is really important. Where I come from, I know for me, I don't like to read, but I've learned that in Canada, read the fine print, read it very well to understand what it is. If you're an accountant like me, you like your figures, build a budget. The budget will also help you to maintain and manage your finances. Build a budget. Winston also said, use no more than 30% of your available credit limits, not more than 30%. It helps a lot in the long run. Thank you.
Okay. Now you said something about building a budget. So I think that's one area that people struggle with, trying to build that budget or trying to save. So without going too in detail on the different types of investment tools that we do have in Canada, what would be advice to someone on budgeting? Like, how can the person start? I know I hear the saying that it's on you, you have to discipline yourself, but honestly, it's not easy because you put the money away, you put the $25 away, and next minute something is coming and then you have to pull it back. So how can you actually start budgeting and discipline yourself enough to keep to those budgeting plans and goals?
Actually, that's the essence of a budget, to keep yourself in check, to make sure you're not spending more than what you've planned for. You can start budgeting just by looking at your bank statement. You can even use your credit card statement. For people that use their credit card most always all the time for expenses or anything they do, the credit card will be a good statement to start with. You can just look at your spend over time. And I also know that with banks, you see like a trend on your expenses. They do like a kind of chart to show you that this is your trend in this month. This is how your expenses have gone. Some even go to the extent of breaking it down, grocery shopping, gas, and all that tells you what it is. That's a good way. The simplest way is pick up that statement or look at a chart or look at whatever, depending on the bank you use, look at the analysis they've done. Then you have an idea of how much you're spending. Then, when I say build a budget, it also comes with discipline. You can build your budget, but at the same time, not stick to the budget. If you build your budget, most people say, my New Year resolution, I'm going to have a budget for this year. They start in January, but come February, they are not updating the budget. They are not even looking at it. They are not able to see the actual spend and what they budgeted for. If you do a budget, it tends to tell you where you spend most, the expense line you're really spending your money. then you have to think about it. Is it worth it or not? So when I say when it comes to credit card or your credit report and everything, when I'm saying build a budget, it helps you check yourself, put yourself in check to say, this is where most of my funds go to, and I need to limit it. Is it worth spending a lot of money on this? Am I just buying, or am I just spending, or there's a reason behind my spending?
All right, thank you for that. And just to touch on something that you both have kind of like hits the nail on multiple times about the credit card, where you say pay more than your minimum payment. And part of the reason why it is really, really important and necessary to pay your entire statement balance is if you just do the minimum or if you do anything under your statement balance, interest will be calculated. And to the best of my knowledge, credit cards interest are like what, 19.99%. I don't know if they are lower credit card interest rate. There might be, but majority of the credit cards do carry that large interest amount. So it's usually good to pay it off in full so that way interest is not calculated as well. So we're just going to go to another question here. All right, so Winston, this would be for you. Can you explain the difference between a credit report and a credit score?
Sure. Uh, I just want to, whatever Bolu just answered the previous one, I like the way she said it, but I also want to add one sentence. Always remember, live within your means. Uh, Try not to spend more than that. That doesn't mean don't enjoy life. That is not what we are suggesting over here. We're just trying to be disciplined. There will be times where you may have to spend, but that's okay. But live with always, if you can take one sentence away, live within your means. That will be one sentence, and I'll answer Stella's question. A credit score is a three-digit number. It can range anywhere from a low 300 to a highest you can get is 900. It can be anywhere between those numbers. The higher it is, definitely the better it is. Typically, I'm not suggesting this by any means. Anything above 650, 700 is all. It shows that you're very responsible. You're very good with your numbers. Just if somebody was curious, what's that? What would be a way to go with? A credit report is more of a detailed description. A score doesn't tell you anything. It's just a number. Somebody has to just work with those numbers. But report tells how many loans you have, what are the balances, when did you open the account, if you have mortgage, if you have an auto loan, if you what's your employment, because on the credit report it even tells also what was your last employment. So it shows those basic details over there. So just to take away, a credit score is a three-digit number. A credit report is a detailed performance of your credit performance till date.
Okay, thank you for that. And Bolu, this one is to you. To maintain a good credit health, I need to pay my credit cards or my credit facilities on time. Now, what would be your advice in terms of budgeting and planning as well, in line with having a good credit score or maintaining a good credit health for genuine emergency expenses? This question is born out of a scenario where someone who is very good at managing his or her finances, and then life happens, medical issues or whatever it is can come up, and then they're now eating into your finances. And I've heard someone say, oh, because I was going through this issue, I liquidated all my savings. I had to even start doing cash advances on my credit cards. So what would be from a financial view and being a CPA as well, what would be your advice on how to avoid, if possible, those kind of situations that might put one in an unhealthy credit?
Oh, okay. For me, I know you had mentioned about the budget. When you do your budget, there's something called miscellaneous expenses. The expenses you're not planning for, it just happens out of that. And at the same time, you can also factor in savings in your budget. But the truth is that going to be enough for unforeseen circumstances? No. You still have to go borrow. You have to get to the bank. But if you have enough savings, if you are disciplined enough to say every month, I must set this money aside, that could help you a lot. What I'm just trying to say is that it's not all your receipts, all your income, or whatever source of income you have that you spend it all on any expense that you have to. You have to have a savings. There are other ways. Some people do have their RRSP. Some people do invest in that. Yes, you can collect it, although you'll be like the interest rate is going to be high when you, I mean, the tax rate, yes, it's going to be high when you collect it, but you need it. So you can look at that. You can look at tax-free savings. That I always advise people to go on first. Every month in your budget, make sure you set aside some certain amount of money that you put in tax-free savings, meaning it's tax-free. When you need the money, you go collect it. It's tax-free. The more you put it there, the more it's being used, invested in some funds. It's not just going to be static, it's yielding interest as well. But when you've utilized all sources of fund, I mean, when you've utilized all available sources, you have no choice. If you have to rely on the bank, going to the bank for a loan or a credit, then you have to do that. At that stage, there's nothing you can do. But have you saved up to half of what you're looking for? It's possible if you're disciplined. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Winston, did you want to touch a little bit on that as well?
I'm very sorry. I was again. I was a little bit distracted. Do you mind repeating the question, Stella? Sorry.
So we're talking about budgeting and the importance of saving and how it helps you in also maintaining a good credit health as well. So my question was, how can one who has a good credit health avoid a situation where they have to start depleting their savings or doing cash advance and credit cards to take care of those emergency situations that come, such as medical issues or loss of a loved one or anything that will actually force you to look for those resources to take care of those needs.
No, that's a very valid question. I'll break this question down to three parts. Number one, even I do always a quick budget of math in my head always, and I said a sentence earlier: live within your means. So for starters, I first understand how much income I'm going to get in my house. Since most of us are employed or self-employed, we more or less know how much is going to come inside. That's number one. Number two, what are your fixed costs? Your rent, your mortgage is a fixed cost. Your car loan is a fixed cost. There's no two ways around it. So those are the payments you have to do. Groceries, another one. Another part is whatever, like you will have to make a small, I won't say fun line, because then that line will get a lot more attention. But you would need to keep that aside just in case, and that can go along very well with Bolu's miscellaneous, how she just mentioned. It can very well go there. But another point, I'm a very big proponent of it, is life insurance. I know this is it doesn't cover the scope of this particular discussion, so I will not go more in detail of it. So that's why I just stay that part. Number two, savings, cash advance. I would highly recommend, please stay away from cash advance, because those the terms are very unreasonable. Number one, to start with. Number two, the interest rates are very high. You may borrow, maybe, I don't know, like example, $1,000, but you'll end up paying almost close to $2,000 you'll end up paying. That's almost double than what you borrowed. It's a very easy, but at the same time, it's very I think it's a very to be used in a very extreme scenario, and you should be very sure you're able to pay it back, because it can be very costly. And the savings in Canada here, and I think Bolu may have already touched on it. We have something called TFSA, tax-free savings account. So I highly recommend every month, if you can just be disciplined, keep a certain amount aside every month in it, and it will be a really good it will be a good part. So these are my three recommendations for folks looking towards that.
Okay. We're almost running out of time. I do have just few couple of more questions here. And so I just have two more questions. So I think I'm just going to go back again to Bolu. I know you just answered this one. What are the potential consequences of having a poor credit score in Canada?
If you have a poor credit score, you might have more trouble taking out a credit card, car loan, or even a mortgage. And if you get accepted for a credit or loan, you can expect to pay higher interest rate on them. Difficulty securing a loan, it becomes difficult to secure a loan. You pay more for your loan if eventually you get one. You have higher insurance premium because your credit is already poor. No lender wants to advance any credit to you anymore. So in order for them to do that, they need to also look at what if this customer defaults? What is the impact to us? So you get to have higher interest rates. So it's really important that you have that at the back of your mind that if your credit gets poor, it's difficult to get lending, any form of lending from anyone, any financial institution. And if you eventually get, the interest rate is going to be higher. You will have a harder time renting an apartment as well because it's one of the requirements. You miss out on career opportunities. Um, you might be required to have some security deposit, limited credit card choices as well. So you are more or less not opportune to have any form of credit, any form of advanced credit from any organization as well. And if you, like I said, if you eventually do, then be ready to pay the higher interest rate on them.
Okay. That's quite touching in so many areas, especially on yeah, some people might say, I have cash, I want to pay for everything cash. But on the piece where you talked about your landlord not being able to qualify for anything, even your employee as well, sorry, your employer as well, that would impact on those things. I didn't know about the employer part as well. I knew about the landlord piece, but I didn't know that employers actually do ask for it. Maybe not all, maybe some. Yeah, so
So,
it's a really good one because based on what you're saying, it's more like you have to have the cash to pay up front if you have a poor credit.
yes.
And it puts a lot of strain on one as an individual. If you have a family, it also puts a lot of strain on the family as well. Now I know I said I had two questions, but I'm just going to throw this one to you, Bolu, as well. What would be your advice to parents with kids under the age of majority? Like, how can they help them to start building their credit report?
So for me, I would start bad because they need to be educated. They need to understand what the credit report is about, what the credit score is about, and how it's going to impact them in future, right? So I will start by telling them that because they're of age, I will start by advising them to get a credit card and start telling them, teaching them how to run the credit card. The credit limit, you can go to the bank as well with them to obtain the credit card. Make sure it's a limit that you know is within control and let them have it. See how they're able to spend on it, how they're able to use the credit card. That way they also have to learn. They have to know. You know, it's not just by talking, but you need to practicalize it as well. So for me, that's the first step I'm going to take. Make sure they have a credit card, see how they utilize the credit card, what they spend the credit card on.
Okay. Would you advise parents? Now we're looking at children, let me not use the word children, people that are under the age of majority. So depending on the province you're in, so under the age of majority, would you recommend for parents to add them as authorized users on credit cards or probably joint? I don't think they can sign legal agreements. I'm not 100% sure. So in situations where they cannot sign legal agreements to obtain credit on their own, would you advise that parents do have them as authorized user on their own credit cards in a way of trying to teach them about how to build and maintain a good credit?
Sure, I would do that. I would do that because is a training I want my child to have. And if I don't start now, right, sorry, I said my child, if I don't start now, right, I believe out there, when he goes out there, he might find it challenging. So he needs to start understanding, he needs to know how it works as well. So I don't know, but if you look at the children of nowadays, they are quick to do this, to learn, not to learn, but they are quick to like spend. They are very attracted to the expensive things. right? They want that, but actually they need to know the sources of that fund and how to manage it, how to spend it. So for me, it won't be a problem as long as there's a limit to the credit card and is manageable. So I wouldn't go out there and say, I want to get $1,000 credit card for my son. Well, let it be registered under me. No.
Okay, so just keep it minimal, basically. All right,
It could be
and the last
200.
question,
Okay.
sorry.
I was saying it could be 200, it could be 500. As time goes on, the way you see your child maintaining the card, then you can decide to start increasing and just see how the child is doing.
Okay, all right, that's a good one. And the last question before we throw it out to the participants, if they do have any other questions, is, and this would be for you, Winston. So on a final note, as a realtor, for someone with no credit report, what would be your advice if the person wants to purchase a home? So if I come to you now and I'm telling you that, hey, I love that $1.5 million house that I'm seeing. And then you've gone through all the stress of looking for the house, and I just pop out from nowhere and say, FYI, I don't have a credit report. I don't have anything under my name. What would be your advice?
Stella, that's a very good question because this is something I am going to talk to someone next week about it. First and foremost, I want to let whoever the person is, that me being as a realtor, I'm here to coach you and guide you through your home buying process, because home buying process in Canada is and North America is one of the most beautiful experience. Anyways, coming back to score, I will always say you need to have a credit report until because if you don't have a credit report, we cannot talk to a mortgage broker, and mortgage broker is the one who's going to give financing at the end of the day. So that's where we need to start first. And how we throughout the session we covered a lot of points. Those are more or less the same things. I mentioned them. I'm not a credit expert. That's not my expertise. Mine is buying and selling homes. That's my expertise. But I do know a bit on it, and that's where I guide people. Okay, this is where you need to start. You need to get going, because without that we can go further. So that's what I would mention over there. Yes.
Okay, all right then. So just before we wrap up, I would like to say a huge thank you to co-host Bolu and Winston. Thank you so much for making out time to attend this Q&A sessions. And for anyone who wants more information on how to actually manage your credit, have a healthy credit, build a good credit score, I normally do drop videos on my social media platforms. So on YouTube is that CV Credit Coach, and you would have some videos that are showing there as well, and also on our Facebook page as well. So before we wrap up, I'm just gonna, because I know someone asked if we drop a question here. So I don't know if any of the participants, if you do have a question to ask, either myself as a convener or any of the co-hosts, then I can just unmute you. If not, then we can just wrap it up. So if you do have a question, you could just raise up your hand and I could take the question.
Comment on met la?
Sorry, do you have a question, Landoye?
I have a question.
Okay.
So thank you, Sister Stella. Thank you, Sister Bolu, and also the speaker, the guest speaker. Sorry, I didn't attend the meeting from the beginning. I just attending from the middle. My question is, when you have a credit card, um, what do you advise for the spending, like the expense? Like me, I usually I will spend sometimes more than 50% of the budget that I have on that credit card. Is it something that you should advise me, or something that I should stop doing? Because someone told me that that was a bad habit. You should spend at least like 30% uh of the credit limit that you have in your credit card.
Okay. Yes, so normally the recommendation is for you not to go above 30% of your credit utilization. Now, are there some situations where you have a large purchase that needs to go through on your credit card? Yes, that can happen. So you can actually put those large transactions on the credit card to get the cash advance or your points or your air miles. But the main thing is you pay it off as soon as possible. What impacts your credit score is if you carry a large balance and it reports to the credit bureau that you have a large balance, that will drop down your score. So if you're very good, but if you don't have the time, I don't recommend this. If you do have the time, you can monitor, contact a financial institution, ask them, when is your reporting date? Most of them don't provide the information. If you're lucky enough and they tell you, okay, your reporting date is on the 4th of the month, you can try to pay it off prior to the 4th. So that way, by the time the credit card reports, it's reporting with a low balance. But if you're not going to be, if you don't have the time to actually monitor it, and this is more like a last resort, I don't recommend carrying large balances. If you don't have the time to monitor your reporting days on your credit card, and if it's a habit, so there's a difference between a one-time large expense and when it's now an habitual expense. If it's a habit, try to make sure that your balance does not exceed 30% of your utilization. So that way it's not reporting all the time that you are carrying large balances. So to your question, 50% is pretty high. So try to maintain 30%. You use it, you pay it off. I know you said you didn't join. We kind of like touched about this at the beginning, which you can go back to the YouTube videos as well. And one thing we said is your credit card is not an extension of your bank account. So don't think that I have this limit, I can have access to it. You still have to pay it back. So, and when you carry large balances, sometimes that is where the financial struggle comes in, because you might then start finding it's easy for one to pay $100, $200, depending on your income or your household income and your savings as well. But once your balance starts hitting 10,000, 15, 20, 30, 70, then at that point, it's really going to be a struggle to try to make those payments. So my recommendation is keep your credit utilization under 30%. Once in a while, you might have those large purchases that come through. You could just put it on the credit card. But before you do that, you already have at the back of your mind that it's either I'm getting paid XYZ day and I'm going to pay it off, or I'm going to be withdrawing from my savings to pay it off. So I don't know if Winston, I don't know if you had the question, but Bolo, I don't know if you have something to add to this as well.
No, actually, you got it. I was going to suggest a 30% as well. And I know we talked about the reporting date. When you have large sums on your credit card that you need to pay, I would advise that you don't wait till the reporting date. Pay as soon as possible. Some people do use their payday. You get paid twice in a month. Every payday, make sure you're putting something from your paycheck into your credit card to pay it off or reduce it. When you know your reporting date and you don't want to end that, you don't want to earn that interest on the amount you're owing, then on that reporting date, make sure you pay whatever balance you have. This is just trying to help you spread it so you're not paying a lump sum on that reporting date. You could actually start breaking it down before that reporting date. I hope that helps you.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. And any other question before we call it a wrap for today? All right, I don't think we have any other questions. So once again, thank you so much, Winston and Bolu. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. We do appreciate it. And from all of us at Call Believe, we wish you a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you again, everyone.